When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
The Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle. The ultimate bundle at an unbelievable price. Starting at $19.99 a month. On Disney Plus, go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in The End of an Era.
Every single one of us all clicked together.
Battle it out with The Roses on Hulu.
Things are getting a little out of hand.
Well, you think?
And don't miss The Conjuring, Last Rites on HBO Max.
I don't know how to protect you this time.
All these and more streaming this month. Plans starting at $19.99 a month. Terms apply. Visit Disney Plus Hulu HBO Max bundle.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed-sponsored jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Popeye's Scary Good new Freddy Fazbear Box has garlic palm tenders and cheesy bites with marinara sauce. Try it before it's too late. And see Five Nights at Freddy's 2, only in theaters. Love that chicken from Popeyes. Limited time at participating U.S. restaurants.
Every who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 125 of DBR Bites, the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans here with you on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. East Coast time. I am joined by my buddy Donald Wine. Donald is in a hotel room. Where has fate taken you this weekend, Donald?
It's taking me to Boston, Massachusetts, not Austin, Massachusetts, if you've watched Road Trip. I was here for a charity ball last night, which was a lot of fun. And thankfully, we did this at 10 a.m., Jason, because at 9 a.m., it might have been a little bit more difficult for me to get out of bed. But yeah, here we are. We're ready. It's been a week. We've had the exam break, and now it's time to get back to the basketball.
Exactly. Yeah, Duke took a little bit of time off, and Duke comes back on the floor on Tuesday against the Lipscomb Bisons. We've mostly been playing teams that you probably already have heard of. I don't want to insult Lipscomb by any stretch of the imagination. And Donald, I'm going to let you tell folks who they've played as we begin to preview them. But I do want to mention this is not a team that should be overlooked. This is, among the non-power conference teams the Duke is playing this year. I don't know. Lipscomb might be the best of the mid-majors, so to speak, that we're playing. They are a team that is currently 137 in KenPom. Last season, a year ago, they finished the year 89th in KenPom. Top 100 club. I mean, last year they were basically, by the way, they made the tournament last year as a number 14 seed. They were basically like, the teams around them were Colorado, LSU, Florida State, Georgetown a year ago. And that's not bad. Teams around them this year include Georgia Tech, Boston College, Stephen F. Austin. I know I may have given people some little trauma there mentioning Stephen F. Austin, but this is not a team that should be overlooked. Am I right, Donald?
You're absolutely correct. This is a team that's very dangerous and can be, especially against teams that overlook them. So let's look into the Lipscomb Bisons out of the Atlantic Sun. They come from Nashville, Tennessee, so I'm very familiar with watching them play, being in Nashville a lot. They are 6-4 on the season, Jason. They started out with 3 straight losses. But again, as I mentioned how dangerous they are, they've won 5 straight entering this game. So again, they're coming in with a little bit of confidence. Now, the teams that they've beaten aren't necessarily the teams that you think, oh, wow, these are really good. Marshall, Southeast Missouri, Tennessee Tech, Alabama A&M, Bryan, which is not even a Division I school. But Jason, we do have a common opponent, and that is Western Carolina. Western Carolina, they played them and they beat them by 21. Now you mentioned, you remember we beat them by 41. So again, 20-point difference there. When you look at how they played against the Catamounts and how we played against them, it's fairly similar. And of course, they don't have Cam Boozer. That's probably their difference. But they played them pretty well. Now I mentioned they are 6-4. They have losses. Their opener to Vanderbilt was kind of we are not ready yet to play ball. They lost that game 105-61. They've also lost to Mercer, UNC Asheville, and a crosstown rivalry, Belmont, which if Lipscomb Belmont is one of those rivalries that if you know, you know. It's a pretty decent rivalry between those two schools. They lost that game. But again, as I mentioned, they're coming in winning 5 straight, Jason. You mentioned they're 137th in KenPom. Looking at the 2 other metrics, 156 in Evan Mia, 173rd in Bart Torvik. The computers kind of aren't really sure yet what to rate some of these mid-major teams. But on the Atlantic Sun, this is clearly a team that is not going to be blinded by the lights of Cameron. They're going to come in trying to do unfortunately, what Stephen Austin did a few years ago and walk out of there with a W.
Yeah, exactly. And it's worth noting, I'll just get this off the top. Ken Pomeroy's projection for this game is that Duke wins this game by 15 points. I think that if you just said Duke, Lipscomb being played in Cameron, most Duke fans would be like, oh yeah, Duke by 20, 25, 30, that kind of thing. Especially because we've seen the Blue Devils, really take out a number of lower rated teams this year. And I think the fact that, again, the computers, the efficiency metrics say that Duke wins this game by 15 points, that tells you a little bit of the quality that Duke's going to face here in Lipscomb. It's worth, like I said, a year ago, they were really good. They made the NCAA tournament. They were a number 14 seed, and their head coach moved on. So they've got a new guy as the head coach. And before I get into the analytics, I just want to mention his name is Kevin Carroll. He's a local Atlanta guy. As someone living in Atlanta, I'm not going to say I'm familiar with Kevin Carroll, but his background, I'm like, oh, I know that school. Oh, I know that. So he played at Berry College, which is like an hour north of Atlanta. I'm obviously familiar with that. He got his coaching start at St. Pius X in Atlanta, which is it's a Catholic school, but a fairly decent basketball program. He's been bouncing around mostly at the Division II level before getting the Lipscomb job, in the off season. But this is him in the big time, and it's a guy who's been coaching for a while, and this is a really nice opportunity for him. And he's got a decent club here at Lipscomb. They were picked to finish 5th in the Atlantic Sun in the preseason, media poll. And I think so far folks are sort of looking at them and going, oh, they may be a little bit better than 5th. Let me get you to the analytics about them. Lipscomb plays fairly fast, not super fast, but they play most of their games in the 70, mid to upper 70 possession kind of range. They've had a game that went to 80 possessions. So Duke, as we've talked about, Donald, a lot, Duke plays really fast on offense, very slow on defense because we're slowing teams down, teams struggling to find good shots. If Lipscomb wants to play fast and is willing to, this could be one of those games where, Duke is in the 80s with 10 minutes left in the contest. We've seen that kind of thing happen occasionally, and this could be a game kind of like that. They're relatively efficient on offense. They hit about 35% of their threes, 52.5% of their 2-point shots. They're okay at turnovers, neither good nor bad at turnovers. They're not going to turn the ball over a lot. They do a really, really poor job of getting to the free throw line. We're talking about one of the 20 lowest free throw rates in the country. And that is because, after hearing that, you're going to believe my next stat. This is a team that does not drive the ball hard to the bucket. They shoot a lot of jump shots, a ton of jump shots. Let me just tell you, almost 50% of their shots come from 3-point range. But Donald, one of the really interesting things is they're not taking threes off the dribble. These are not guys who are dribbling, putting a move on you, taking a step back. They're passing and passing a lot to get their 3-point shots. They have a super high assist rate. Donald, you and I talk about assist rate all the time. This is a team that averages an assist on more than 2/3 of their baskets. 66.8% of the time, they get an assist when they make a basket. And that's because they penetrate the defense a little bit, kick it out to a guy who's open on the perimeter to take a three-pointer. That's the way their entire offense works. And everybody on this team takes three-pointers. You would be hard-pressed to find a guy in the rotation who hasn't already taken 20 or more three-pointers on the season. On defense, they don't do a lot to protect the rim. The teams are able to shoot fairly well against them, especially on the inside. They're decent. They're pretty good at forcing turnovers. They have a top 75 steal percentage, which is, a pretty good number for a team like this. So you got to protect the ball against them. They also do a very nice job of grabbing defensive rebounds and preventing second chance points. They're not a great offensive rebounding team, but they do a decent job of cleaning things up on those defensive boards. They are, by the way, down a very, very deep team. They play their bench a lot. It is highly likely in this game that you're going to see Lipscomb play 10 guys against Duke, and they do have a decent little bit of size. You got anything on the analytics you want to do before I get into the players?
Yeah, that last point you mentioned, Lipscomb is that type of team that you'll see go, in some years go 11, 12, 13 guys just in an effort to try and get something going and find the combination that they want to go with in the final 5 minutes. This is going to be no exception. You'll see guys start the game, but you're going to see them free-flowing guys in and out of the lineup just to kind of see what those combinations are going to be.
Yeah, and let's talk about the guys who are probably going to play the most and the guys who are most important to them. Start with the size, because anytime Duke's playing a non-power conference team, you wonder how they're going to match up with Duke size-wise. And Lipscomb has a couple guys who can handle things on the interior. Their best player and their best interior player is 6'11" forward Grant Asman. By the way, I'm not going to make any jokes about Seinfeld and the famous license plate, but his name is Asman. It's just out there for you. Anyway, dude is 6'11". He leads the team in scoring and rebounding, 13.7 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, 1.4 blocks per game. He's their rim protector. He's their only chance at protecting the rim. And by the way, here's the thing about Asman. He hits 41% of his threes. Now, you would probably think on a 6'11" dude that was sort of low volume. And, he only goes out there occasionally. No. He's taken 54 threes on the season, Donald. He's taken more threes than anyone else on the team. He is a major threat from out there. Grant Asman. By the way, he's a fifth-year senior who has been at Lipscomb his entire career. That's just rare to see.
That's rare.
Yeah, at this point.
That's rare before the portal.
Yeah, exactly. He started before the portal, and he's still there after the portal's been going on for a few years. And this is just a really nice story. He's never had a season anywhere close to this. This is a guy who stuck around Lipscomb, even though he was averaging like 3, 4, 5 points per game throughout his entire career. He's never played anywhere close to 20 minutes per game. And then suddenly this year, as a fifth-year senior, he comes on and he's hitting threes left and right all over the place, and he's averaging close to 14 points per game. I mean, it's a really sweet story for him. His reward for that story is to get matched up against Cam Boozer. Good luck, my friend. He's kind of long, at 6'11", but he doesn't have a lot of meat on the bone. He's just like 215, maybe 220. So I think that could be a problem for them when he matches up with Cam. By the way, the other big man they have, the guy who's going to be tasked with containing Big Pat, is a guy named Charlie Williams. He's 6'10". He's a fairly solid 225, 230. Look, he only gets about 8 points per game, but he is willing to bang a bit on the inside. This is the surprising thing about Charlie Williams. So he's their center, like I said, 6'10", 230. Dude only grabs 2.6 rebounds per game. You would think at 6'10", 230 that like 2.6 rebounds would just fall into his hands every game. I don't know how he manages to average less than 3 rebounds per game as the starting center, but he's the guy. He's going to try and lean on Big Pat as much as he can. Look, this is a team with a ton of players who play between like 15 and 25 minutes per game. I'm not going to profile all 10 of them, but I did want to mention just a couple more. The first one is the straw that stirs the drink for them. They have a point guard named Mateo Esmeraldo. Only 6'1". He played last year, past couple of years actually, in the Division II level. He played for Trevica Nazarene, at D2. You watch many Trevor and Nazarene games, Donald? I'm sure you're a big.
No, I haven't seen him. Never heard of her.
In any event, dude did set the school record for assists and free throw percentage last year at Trevor and Nazarene. So he can play. And this year so far, back in Division I, he's averaging more than 6.6 assists per game and 10 points per game. Mateo Esmeraldo is the guy. He's going to probe your defense a lot with the dribble, and then kick out to his teammates. Really interesting matchup there with CFOS. I think Esmeralda will have a little bit of trouble physically. Again, he's 6'1", CFOS is 6'5", and CFOS is a great defender one-on-one against the point guard. But if Lipscomb's going to have a chance in this game, it's a chance built on Mateo Esmeraldo finding his teammates for open threes, and it's going to be very interesting to see if the Duke defense is able to shut that down. Last two guys I want to mention. First one is a dude named Or Ashkenazi. Or Ashkenazi is a 6'5" freshman from Israel. He's a freshman even though he's 21 years old. That's just how it works with these international players. He played 3 years in Israel's first division before coming over to the U.S. And I'm going to tell you, Donald, when I saw this guy on their roster, and I saw this name, I was like, wait, that name rings a bell. I did a little searching. I remember when this guy first announced he was going to come over to the U.S. from Israel. And there were some big teams involved. There was talk that Kentucky was involved with this guy. Auburn, Kansas State, Ohio State. All these schools were supposedly kicking the tires on him. He was one of the better young players in the Israeli first division. He played 3 years of pro ball in Israel in their first league, in their first division. And the Israeli first division is a pretty good league over there in Europe. But he ends up at Lipscomb, which is sort of that's kind of Kentucky, Ohio State, and you end up at Lipscomb. And frankly, he's been a starter. He moved to the starter lineup a few games ago, and maybe he's part of why they've suddenly gone on this little win streak they've been on. But he only averages 3 points per game. He's a really low usage player. But I saw the name and I went, I remember that guy because Kentucky at one point was recruiting him. And then the other guy I wanted to mention, they have a guy named Kennedy Okpara who has real athletic gifts. He's a wing for them. He's 6'7", I think. He will throw down I saw some highlights. Dude will throw a nasty dunk on your head. You got to be careful about Kennedy Okpara. Again, I looked at that name and I went, that rings a bell. His brother is Felix Okpara, who plays for Tennessee and is a really, really good player. He's a starter for Tennessee. Really good big man for Tennessee. So they got some, good bloodlines here at Lipscomb. I also want to mention, and I got to be careful about this, but folks are going to notice it. Kennedy Okpara is one of only 2 guys in their rotation who's not Caucasian. I don't know, you're just going to see a lot of white guys on the floor. Doesn't mean anything. Look, white guys play basketball as well as, it's not but it is, you're just going to notice this is probably the whitest team Duke's going to play all year. I don't know. I'm just going to point it out because it's going to be obvious.
So the funny thing, Jason, is
I stumped you there. You got nothing to say after that, huh?
Well, no, because it's funny. I was waiting for you to say there's a 4-letter word out there that you haven't said yet. And I don't think we've said it. We're 18 minutes in, and that word is rust. When you come off of this exam break, rust is always present in the building. And so the good thing about Lipscomb is they're a scrappy team, right? They're not going to quit. They're a team that's going to hopefully help us get out of the rust. And the idea is the rust is going to be present, but you got to shake it as quickly as possible. And as we move into the kind of things to watch, that is always present when you have this exam break game that we're coming off of. And we're going to have 2 games this week. Obviously, we have the game against Texas Tech at the end of the week. But I hope that the rust that we have, that the defense, the effort on defense, as we mentioned, defense always travels. Defense can always be in your carry-on. It can always bring it in a bag. Let that effort shake off the rust that's going to be present on offense initially. We're going to have some bad shooting probably to start the game. It's probably not going to be a good start. That's generally how these games go. So hopefully we're able to shake that rust. And again, this is a pretty good, decent team to line up against to try and do that.
Yeah, really quick on the rust. I do want to point out that obviously Duke's had 10 days off. Lipscomb also has had 9-10 days off. They haven't played since December 7th against Alabama A&M. And so they've also been on the exam break. So I agree with you. Probably you're not going to see it. You're going to see a lot of balls clanking off rims the first few minutes of this game.
Which leads me to my next point. Control the paint, control the rebounding. If there's going to be a lot of rust in the first few minutes, then we need to make sure that the rust is only limited to one shot on their possessions, on Lipscomb's possessions. If we get the ball and we're going up and down, again, some of these things that are going to ease us out of this rust are the things that we do well. Getting out in the break, moving fast, taking good shots, like good shot selection. Again, you don't have to make them, but at least get in the rhythm of not forming bad habits because you've been off for a week and a half. So that is what I'm looking at, Jason. The last thing I have is this is a game to get the Wings active. We kind of talked last week with Jordan Brenner about how the Wings haven't been that 3 spot especially has not quite been up to the production that we thought it would be yet. This is a great chance to get those guys active, that particular spot. Again, with the shot selection, getting good shots, moving the ball around. You mentioned Lipscomb is great at moving the ball around. We are too. We should, again, lean on those things that we know we do well, because that helps us get out of the rust phase quicker. If you're able to do that instead of forming bad habits and hoping that you can, shoot your way out of the rust in the first 2 minutes of the game, that's not going to happen. Ease into that, understand that it's going to be present, and figure out how to break it using the great fundamentals that we've seen thus far.
Yeah. By the way, I forgot to mention this. This is and this won't surprise anyone. Lipscomb is an old team. Like, as I said, even their freshman's 21 years old, but most of the guys out there are juniors and seniors. They're guys who've played 4 or 5 years of college basketball. Not all of it at the Division I level. They got a lot of guys who played like Division II and JUCO and things like that. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just a different level of competition than they will face in Duke. And I think, look, you mentioned other than that opening game against Vanderbilt, they really haven't played. They haven't played major power conference competition at all, and it's going to be a real major step forward for them. But again, the computers say that Duke only wins this game by about 15. We shall see. We're going to take a quick break, Donald. On the other side, this is a quick episode. It's holiday time. Duke's been on exam break, but we're going to tell you a little bit of recruiting news that's bubbling up. Some talk about Duke and a very, very good point guard after this break.
Hey, the holidays are almost here, and if you have names still on your list, don't panic. Uncommon Goods makes holiday shopping stress-free and joyful. With thousands of one-of-a-kind gifts you can't find anywhere else, you'll discover presents that feel meaningful and personal, never rushed or last minute.
Uncommon Goods has something for everyone, from moms and dads to kids and teens, from book lovers and sports fans to foodies, mixologists, and gardeners. You'll find unforgettable gifts that are anything but ordinary. And perhaps most importantly, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Every purchase is a chance to choose something remarkable and feel good about where your money goes.
Look, so don't wait. Make this holiday the year you give something truly unforgettable. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/DukeBB. That's uncommongoods.com/DukeBB and get 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
This episode is presented by State Farm. Having insurance isn't the same as having State Farm. It's like needing the protection of an offensive guard on the football field, but getting an elementary school crossing guard. Sure, they're both guards, but you can only trust one to keep your quarterback safe when the game is on the line. So don't settle for just any insurance when there's State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
We're only a few weeks in, and the season is already wild. Stars are going off, freshmen are making noise, and the action doesn't stop. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is where you can get in on all of it for pro and college basketball.
Yeah, and don't forget the holiday tournaments and the Emirates NBA Cup. Big moments, big matchups, and a whole lot on the line. Don't miss out. Jump in and bet on the action today.
So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DukeBB. That's code DUKEBB. Bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Here's my 30-second story with Guinness. As soon as my sister and I get home for the holidays, we don't even unpack. We head straight to our pub. The bartender already knows our order, Guinness and fries. We laugh all night, catch up with old friends, and walk home with faces sore from smiling. It's one of my favorite nights of the year. That was my 30-second story with Guinness.
Guinness Draft Stout. Please enjoy responsibly. Imported by Diageo Beer Company, USA, New York, New York.
This episode is brought to you by McAfee.
Yes! Playoff tickets! Just need to click here and... Wait, what? Fake site? Good thing McAfee threw the red flag. That would have been $400 gone.
McAfee blocks risky sites so you don't pay for seats and other things that don't exist. Plans start at just $39.99 for your first year. That's cheaper than parking on game day. Learn more at McAfee.com/online protection.
All right, Donald, we're back from the break, and I just want to give folks a really quick an update on an interesting recruiting situation that has cropped up with Duke. Duke has been in pursuit for a little while of a point guard by the name of Deron Rippey Jr. Rippey is he's like top 15 in the country in terms of his ranking in the high school class, but he's considered like either the number one or the number two point guard in the class. He's 6'2", 175. So I mean, he's a little bit smaller than we usually see Duke only going after guys at the 6'4", 6'5", and up kind of range. Deron Rippey's a little bit smaller than that, but he makes up for it with just elite athleticism. This is a kid who can just jump his way out of the gym. He's long, just very, very athletic, a really, really great defender. He pressures the ball really well. He just ideal at sort of using his length and a little bit of physicality to push back on guys and make life difficult for them. He's a decent shooter. He's not yet a great outside shooter, but he's a decent outside shooter. You know, he played on the Adidas AAU circuit this summer, and he hit about 35% of his three-point shots. So he's not bad at that. But the thing that you notice if you watch highlights of him and the such is his ability to get into the lane, elevate, throw down just nasty dunks, finish in traffic, you know, because he floats in the air a bit. Just a dynamic kind of lead guard. Like I said, Duke's been involved with him for a while, but there was a lot of perception out there that we probably weren't the leader. He's also been considering Tennessee. NC State was very high on Deron Rippey, and there was a lot of talk about him to NC State. Texas and Miami are the other schools who are very involved here. Just in the past week or so, there's been a lot of stuff rumbling up that Deron Rippey is probably going to pick Duke. Duke is now perceived as the leader for him, and there are recruiting experts out there who are saying, yeah, I think this is probably where he's going to end up going, and we may get an announcement from Deron Rippey. I don't want to say it any day, but in the next couple weeks, it looks like it could happen. One of the interesting things about that, Donald, and actually I should let you, have you looked at Rippey at all? You got anything to say about that?
No, but what's interesting, Jason, is 2 months ago, we had 0 people who had committed in this class. We talked about how in this new era of NIL that kind of has been pushed, we thought mainly towards the end of the season, but now we're starting to see a little bit more of a flurry around Christmas time. And it makes a lot of sense, right? You go through the fall season, a lot of these guys are in their fall season with sports, and then they're getting into the basketball portion of their season. But it's the holidays, so they have their families around. They have a little bit of downtime in between the basketball to kind of think about some of these decisions. And that's why you've kind of seen a little more activity on the recruiting trail this time of year, as opposed to what that would have been September, October, when we would have seen the most traffic in previous years.
Yeah. So I'll tell you one of the interesting things about Duke sort of turning up the heat on Deron Rippey. I'm gonna come out and say it, even though I've got no intel on this at all. It's sort of an interesting recruitment for a couple different reasons. One is obviously Duke is also very involved with Jordan Smith Jr., who is a combo guard, and just the nature of how the roster looks probably for next year, you kind of go, wait, is there room for Deron Rippey and Jordan Smith Jr.? It makes you sort of start to wonder about what Jon Scheyer thinks his roster is going to look like next season. The other thing is, like Jordan Smith, you could see playing on the wing. Deron Rippey is purely a point guard, and Duke's got 2 point guards on the roster right now in Cephas, Caleb Foster, and Caden Boozer, and you feel like neither of those guys are necessarily likely NBA draft, guys, at least, in this offseason. So you're sort of like, well, wait, why is Duke going after Deron Rippey when they've already got 2 guys who potentially, you would think there's at least a decent chance could be coming back? I don't know. It's too early, frankly, for any of these guys to have made any of these kind of decisions or anything like that. But it does set up some sort of interesting kind of like, how does that roster necessarily work? How do the minutes fit? I don't know the answer to those things, but it's very interesting. I think that Duke is really interested in Deron Rippey and has turned up the pressure on him, and that experts are saying Duke's probably going to get Deron Rippey because, again, what does that say about Jordan Smith, who's the number 2 player in the class? What does that say about Caleb Foster, who's a junior, who looks, who you would think would be considering coming back next year, loves Duke to death? What does it say about Caden Boozer, who's how many point guards can Duke play at one time? I guess that's kind of my question here.
Well, I wouldn't be too concerned about that because, one, we've seen how Jon Scheyer can fit these, square pegs into round holes, right? But also, Jason, if you remember this time last year, we were like, hey, I don't know how these minutes are going to happen because we have 17 wings in this class that we've signed. We had 5 guys that were all 6'6", 6'7", and all played the same position, and somehow we figured out that matrix and how to work. Now, again, you're talking about next year's class when you look at Sebastian Wilkins is redshirting this year. He's coming back. You mentioned the 2 point guards who are likely to come back. And then if we are able to hang on to a Slim if he doesn't go pro, a Big Pat if he doesn't go pro, like those
Nick
sort of guys.
Hemenia. I think Nick Hemenia is a guy who's likely to come back, who could be a huge key next year.
Right. And Darren Harris, you got some guys who, if they come back, you may not have to recruit that many more guys to fill out this class. And maybe you're going after 1 or 2 key pieces that you think will be necessary to help next year's team. But it's an interesting matrix. And again, with the NIL, with the portal being open at the end of the season, it's almost like you're signing these guys. You're like, okay, now we have to hope we hold on to them, because last year we signed Shelton Henderson. He decided to go to Miami. We were on basically the leader in the clubhouse for Nate Emmett. He ended up going to Tennessee, right? So there's things that are going to change between now and then. But this whole minutes matrix, clearly Jon Scheyer has a plan. I trust in that plan because, I don't know what it is. And I'm not being paid the big bucks to figure it out.
Yeah. And look, our focus is on this season, a very, very special season so far where Duke is still undefeated. I will tell you the one thing that's a little bit like, I don't want to say hard to figure out, but the way Pat Gongba has been playing lately, there's lots of talk that he could be leaving for the NBA. And honestly, among all the guys that Duke is recruiting, and look, Duke got Cameron Williams. He's an incoming freshman. He's a big, 6'11". He's a rim protector, but I don't think Cameron Williams, you don't want to say, hey, Cameron, you need to guard opposing centers. That's sort of not his game. And on offense especially, Cameron Williams is a face the basket, sort of not Boozer, but somewhat in that kind of mold, as in he's a guy who's going to take the ball on the perimeter, not in the post. And so you're sort of like, well, wait, Duke hasn't really recruited any other than Maxime Mayer, who's not expected to be an instant impact guy. Like, Duke doesn't really have any big men. Like, what are we? Anyway, it's kind of,
they're coming.
Coming. John Shire will figure it out. I'm sure John Shire will figure it out because he always figures it out. The Duke roster is always like one of the most talented rosters in the entire country. But we could be looking at maybe Shire's planning and playing like 5, 6, 7 guys next year. 5 wigs.
You never know.
It could happen. Don Nelson ball all over again.
Yeah.
For you youngsters, look up Don Nelson.
Yeah, that's old school ball.
It is definitely. Okay, in any event, that's going to wrap it up for us here on the latest edition of DBR Bites. We'll be back at you right after the Lipscomb game to give you a recap of that contest. We will also be previewing a big game. Texas Tech coming up, a really, really interesting team. Don, you see Texas Tech played Arkansas the other day, just yesterday.
Yep, and I will see Texas Tech next weekend at the Garden. You got my ticket, so I'll be there.
There you go, baby. That's all you need to know. Donald's going to be in the house. Until then, he's Donald Wine. I'm Jason Evans. This is the Duke Band, playing us out and taking us home.